This is a story about the village of Lumina, both real and imagined. It was a village where people hid their true selves behind masks. Everyone wore one, each mask carefully crafted to project a particular image: strength, beauty, intelligence, or success. The villagers were judged not by who they truly were, but by how perfectly they maintained their facades. To them, their masks were their identity, and without them, they feared they were nothing. Among them lived a young woman named Meera, who always felt uneasy about the masks. Her own mask, an intricately designed piece with shimmering jewels, never felt like it fit. It pinched her skin, and she often found herself adjusting it, trying to make it align with how she thought others wanted her to appear. Despite her efforts, Meera couldn't escape the feeling that something wasn't right. One day, while wandering the edges of the forest that surrounded the village, Meera stumbled upon an elderly man sitting by a stream. He wore no mask, and his face was weathered but peaceful. The sight shocked Meera. She had never seen anyone without a mask before. "Why aren't you wearing one?" she asked, her voice a mix of curiosity and fear. The man looked at her with kind eyes and smiled. "Because I've learned that who I am beneath the mask is far more valuable than the mask itself." Meera: "But without a mask, how do people know who you are? How do you fit in?" The man chuckled softly. "Tell me, Meera, do you wear your mask for yourself or for others?" She hesitated, unsure how to answer. "I guess for others. It's what we're taught to do." "And has it made you happy?" he asked. Meera looked down, her silence revealing the truth. The man introduced himself as Orion and invited Meera to sit by the stream. Over the next hour, he shared stories of his life in Lumina. He had once worn the most envied mask in the village, a mask of wisdom and success that commanded respect wherever he went. But over time, the mask became a burden. It demanded perfection, forced him to hide his doubts and struggles, and left him feeling more isolated than admired. "The mask may shine," Orion said, "but it casts a shadow over the soul." Meera listened intently, her fingers tracing the edges of her own mask. "But if we take off our masks, won't people reject us? Won't we be exposed?" Orion nodded. "At first, yes. The world fears what it doesn't understand, and many will resist what is different. But being yourself is not about pleasing everyone. It's about living truthfully, and in that truth lies your superpower." Orion gave Meera a challenge: to remove her mask for one day and observe how it felt. The idea terrified her, but something about Orion's peaceful demeanor gave her the courage to try. The next morning, Meera left her home without her mask. She felt vulnerable and naked, as though every flaw and imperfection was on display. As she walked through the village, she noticed the reactions of others. Some whispered, some stared, and a few openly mocked her. Her heart ached, and she considered rushing back to the safety of her mask. But then something unexpected happened. A young boy approached her, his own mask awkwardly perched on his face. He looked at her with wide, curious eyes. "How did you do it?" he asked. "Do what?" Meera replied. "How did you take off your mask? Weren't you scared?" Meera knelt to his level and smiled. "I was. But I realized I was more scared of never knowing who I really am." The boy's eyes lit up, and he reached up to touch his own mask, as if considering what it would feel like to remove it. As days turned into weeks, Meera continued to live without her mask. The initial ridicule faded, replaced by curiosity and even admiration. Some villagers began to ask her questions, drawn to her authenticity. She noticed how many of them seemed weighed down by their own masks, afraid to let them slip even for a moment. One by one, others began to follow her example. A farmer removed his mask of strength, admitting he needed help with his crops. A musician discarded her mask of perfection, allowing herself to make mistakes as she composed. Each act of vulnerability inspired another, and soon the village began to change. One evening, Meera returned to the stream to find Orion waiting for her. His face lit up as he saw her approach, her confidence evident in her unmasked demeanor. "I think I understand now," Meera said. "Being yourself isn't about rejecting others or standing apart. It's about showing the world who you are so that others feel safe to do the same. It's about connection." Orion nodded. "When you live authentically, you don't just free yourself, you free those around you. That's the superpower of being yourself." As they sat by the stream, the village lights flickered in the distance. Though some still clung to their masks, many had begun to shed them, revealing faces filled with hope, vulnerability, and humanity. Meera smiled, knowing she had found something far more valuable than the approval of others, the courage to be herself. Over time, the village of Lumina became a place unlike any other. Where once the streets were filled with carefully crafted masks, now faces shone with the raw, unfiltered beauty of humanity. The masks that had once defined their identities were not destroyed. Instead, they were placed in a central square as a reminder of what they had overcome. Each mask was unique, a testament to the roles they had played and the personas they had created. But now, these masks were no longer burdens. They were symbols of the courage it took to set them aside. Meera's journey inspired others to begin their own. Some villagers started to write, paint, or sing, expressing parts of themselves they had long hidden. The farmer who had once feared asking for help started a community garden, inviting others to share in his work and harvest. The musician who had struggled with perfectionism performed an imperfect but heartfelt piece that moved the entire village. Meera herself became a quiet leader. She didn't preach or demand change. Instead, she listened, encouraged, and shared her story. She often returned to the stream where she had first met Orion, sketching the world as she now saw it. Vivid, imperfect, and alive. That's the magic of being yourself. It doesn't just change you, it becomes a beacon, lighting the way for others to find themselves. To be yourself is not to be perfect. It is to be whole. It is to embrace the light and the shadow, the strength and the vulnerability, the joy and the pain. This is the paradox of humanity. We are flawed, yet infinite, ordinary, yet extraordinary. And when we live as ourselves, we unlock the power to inspire others to do the same. That is why being yourself is not just a choice, it is your greatest superpower. That's it for now. Thanks to everyone who watched. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more new content. See you next time.